The Miraculous Infant Jesus of Prague. Father Cyril stared in awe at the small, graceful statue of the infant Jesus resting in his trembling hands. For days he had searched, turning over every remnant of the ruined church of Our Lady Victorious in Prague, until at last he discovered it, half buried in a heap of rubble left after the attack on Prague in 1631. The figure was battered and soiled, its delicate hands broken away. Yet, Father Cyril drew it close to his chest with fervent gratitude. As he knelt amid the rubble, his face wet with happy tears, his thoughts drifted back to his earlier life and all he had learned about the statue's history. Born in Luxembourg in 1590, he had, as a young man, entered the Carmelite monastery in Prague. As Brother Cyril, he had suffered from deep depression and spiritual dryness, regarding himself as a hopeless sinner. Following his superior's advice, he had prayed before a wax statue of the child Jesus, donated by Princess Polexena von Lobkowitz. He experienced an immediate spiritual healing, and from that moment onward, his heart belonged entirely to the little king whose image and presence guided him throughout his life, including his eventual ordination as a priest. Devotion to the Christ child had a rich history, having been practiced in the Catholic Church since at least the Middle Ages. In medieval art, statues of the regal Christ child were numerous, and he was often depicted holding a small bird or a globe in his little hands. Through the centuries, many saints have shown a profound love for the divine child. Among them, Saint Therese of Lisieux, Saint Francis of Assisi, Saint Anthony of Padua, and Saint Teresa of Avila. In particular, Saint Teresa of Avila, who lived in the 1500s, ardently promoted devotion to the Christ child. Whenever she traveled, she carried with her a small statue of the divine infant, a fine piece of Spanish craftsmanship. She prayed to him with tender faith, encouraging her nuns to do the same. It was said that Teresa would sing gentle lullabies to the Holy Child, and once she even danced before his image, tambourine in hand. From her convents, this devotion spread throughout Spain, taking root especially among the nobility. The Carmelites expressed their devotion for the Holy Child by calling him the Founder, the Little Pilgrim, and the Savior. Teresa of Avila's devoted disciple and fellow Carmelite, St. John of the Cross, the renowned priest, mystic, and theologian, possessed a deep ardor for the mystery of the Incarnation. During the Christmas season, he would reverently carry an image of the child Jesus in procession. He also composed poignant verses celebrating the wonder of the Nativity. The explorer Ferdinand Magellan even carried a statue of the Holy Infant with him during his voyage of discovery to the Philippines. As a result, devotion to the Infant of Prague is a cherished tradition to this day in the Philippines, and Magellan's statue of the infant is still venerated on the Philippine island of Cebu. The year 1526 marked a turning point for the ancient kingdom of Bohemia. The Habsburg royal family had taken the throne, drawing the kingdom into the elegant and power-laden orbit of Spain. From that time on, Bohemia's culture began to reflect Spanish refinement. Noblemen spoke Spanish at court, donned Spanish silks, and eagerly sought marriages with proud Iberian families. In 1548, Emperor Maximilian II married his cousin, Maria of Spain, also known as Maria of Austria, who was the daughter of the powerful Emperor Charles V. The marriage was arranged to strengthen ties between the Spanish and Austrian branches of the Habsburg family. The young empress brought with her to Prague her devoted lady-in-waiting, Maria Manriquez de Lara. Nestled among the possessions of Maria Manriquez, wrapped carefully for the long journey, was a small statue of the divine infant Jesus, a slender, gracefully fashioned figure, carved entirely from wood, overlaid with a delicate coating of wax. Measuring 19 inches in height, the little statue portrayed the Christ child poised with quiet majesty. His left foot, just barely visible beneath the folds of a long white tunic, suggested a tender step forward, as if he were about to move toward the beholder. In his left hand, the child cradled a small globe crowned with a cross, a symbol of his sovereignty over all the world. His right hand was lifted in blessing, the first two fingers rising together, signifying the divine and human natures united in the person of Christ. The remaining fingers represent the profound mystery of the Blessed Trinity, the eternal union of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. This single image tells of the incarnation, kingship, and divine mystery all at once, and it was this statue that later would become known as the Infant of Prague. Maria Manriquez de Lara was both a relative and close friend of Saint Teresa of Avila, and some believe the saint had designed the statue herself and presented it to Maria. According to another tradition, however, the statue was a gift to Maria's mother from a holy monk who had carved it after having a vision of the Christ child. In the bustling court of Prague, Maria Manriquez soon caught the attention of Vladislav Pernsteiner, a Czech nobleman of great influence in the emperor's service. Their marriage was blessed with 20 children, though only 7 survived. Maria herself was known for her deep piety, and the statue of the infant Jesus, which had crossed mountains and borders by her side, stood in a place of reverence in her household. Her children knelt before it in prayer, learning to model their conduct on the Christ child's innocence and goodness. Visitors to the Pernsteiner home often remarked that the household seemed touched by grace, the family's unity and faith shining quietly in every corner. Among Maria's children, her youngest, Polyxena, was said to be her dearest, perhaps because she had inherited her mother's gentle and devout nature. Raised in the emperor's court, Polyxena grew into a young woman of grace and wisdom. There she met Prince Sidonius Lobkowitz, a man whose noble character harmonized with her own. As a wedding gift, Maria presented her beloved daughter with a treasure she valued above all others, the statue of the divine infant. The small figure was put in a place of honor in the Lobkowitz home, where its presence seemed to fill their life together with peace and their marriage with affection and happiness. For 11 years, Polyxena and Prince Sidonius lived in contentment. But tragedy struck in 1623 when Sidonius died unexpectedly. To ease her sorrow, the grieving widow dedicated herself to prayer and works of charity, seeking comfort in serving others. When Ferdinand II of Austria was crowned King of Bohemia, war broke out between the Catholics and Protestants. The combat that followed ended in a decisive Catholic victory. In thanksgiving for this triumph, King Ferdinand established several Carmelite monasteries. In Prague, a house and a former Protestant church were given to the Carmelites in 1624. The church was dedicated on September 8th, the feast of the Nativity of Our Lady, under the title Our Lady Victorious. Despite the royal grant, the Prague community struggled. After Emperor Ferdinand moved his court to Vienna, the friars were left with little support, and at times even lacked food. News of their situation reached Princess Polixena, and helping them became one of the causes closest to her heart. She developed a great fondness for the community. One day in 1628, she came to the monastery bringing the statue of the Infant Jesus. Handing it to the prior, she said, "Father, I am giving you what I prize above all things. As long as you honor this image, you will never want." Her gift would become one of the most revered religious treasures of Prague. The statue was placed in the monastery chapel. Twice a day, the community gathered for special devotions before it, with the novices showing the deepest affection. They prayed that the divine infant would bless and keep them. That same year, the emperor unexpectedly sent a generous gift of 2,000 florins and promised a monthly allowance to sustain the monastery. Many other blessings followed, including Brother Cyril's own deliverance from spiritual desolation. This peaceful interlude, however, was short-lived. In 1630, King Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden advanced toward Prague with his Protestant armies. Brother Cyril, along with most of the Carmelites, was sent to Munich for safety, leaving only 2 priests remaining at the monastery in Prague. During those troubled days, veneration of the Infant Jesus statue gradually ceased. On November 15, 1631, the Protestant forces entered Prague, plundering its monasteries and churches. The Carmelites' church was desecrated, their property seized, and the 2 remaining priests imprisoned. Amid the wreckage, the statue of the Holy Infant was discarded in a heap of rubbish behind the high altar. Its hands were broken, yet remarkably, the rest of the figure remained unscathed. When peace returned, the Carmelites came back to Prague. Burdened with the task of rebuilding, they seemed not to notice the little statue, which was cast out with the piles of debris cleared from their ravaged church. For the next 7 years, misfortune seemed to cling to the monastery. Every prior or master of novices during this period resigned before completing their term of office, worn down by anxieties and frustrations. Many friars sought transfers, ill at ease with the dark cloud that seemed to hang over the monastery. The house verged on destitution. Religious ardor was replaced with apathy, and discord spread among the brethren. It was as though heaven itself waited for the forgotten infant to be restored to a position of honor. Father Cyril reflected on his own recent return to Prague. During his time away, his devotion to the Holy Infant Jesus had never waned. Upon his return, he had searched every corner of the church and monastery for the statue he so cherished. At last, today, buried beneath a heap of rubbish, he had discovered his long-lost treasure. Overcome with joy, he cleaned the precious little statue as best as he could. Though the statue was battered and its small outstretched arms broken away, Father Cyril sought and received the prior's permission to restore it to its former place of honor above the altar. Once more, the divine infant looked down from his niche in the Carmelite chapel. Before him, the community gathered, lifting their hearts in fervent prayer for their community. And soon consolation descended upon them, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. With their renewed fervor came many spiritual and material blessings. As before, Father Cyril was the most ardent devotee of the Divine Child, deriving great comfort from his long hours of prayer before the statue, often alone in the quiet shadows of the chapel. One night, when the rest of the friars had left and silence filled the sacred space, he still lingered in prayer. Then, in the stillness, the holy priest heard these words that seemed to come from the little statue. "Have pity on me, and I will have pity on you. Give me my hands, and I will give you peace. The more you honor me, the more I will bless you." Father Cyril went at once to the prior, pleading earnestly that the statue's hands be repaired and restored. But the prior, weighted with the material burdens of the monastery, could not bring himself to approve what seemed a needless expense. Unlike Father Cyril, he lacked a deep confidence in the providence of the divine child. Unfortunately for the prior, throughout the remainder of his rule, misfortune would shadow the monastery at every turn. As Father Cyril carried the damaged statue back to his small cell, his eyes filled with tears. He knelt and pleaded with the divine infant to provide the means to restore his image. A few days later, word came that a wealthy gentleman lay gravely ill and needed the spiritual comfort of a priest. Father Cyril went at once. He heard the man's confession, and as they conversed afterwards, he told the man about the little statue, how it had been broken and neglected, awaiting restoration. Moved by the story, the ailing benefactor pressed 100 florins into Father Cyril's hands so that the holy infant might once again be made whole. The priest returned to the monastery overflowing with gratitude, rejoicing that the long-hoped-for work could finally begin. But when the prior heard of the gift, he pondered the matter and came to the conclusion that the money would be better spent in commissioning a new statue rather than repairing the old damaged one. His order was obeyed, and soon a freshly made image of the infant Jesus was installed where the original had once stood. Yet almost immediately, a heavy candelabrum, securely fixed to the wall, mysteriously fell for no apparent reason, shattering the new figure to pieces. To Father Cyril, the meaning was unmistakable. Heaven itself seemed to decree that the old, damaged statue, the one sanctified by years of prayer and tears, was destined to be the true object of veneration within their chapel. Shortly thereafter, the order held its elections, and Father Dominic was appointed as the new prior. Seizing the chance, Father Cyril went to him with the same heartfelt request that the original statue of the Holy Infant might be repaired and restored. Father Dominic gladly promised his cooperation, but when he considered the monastery's meager funds, he found he could offer only a small sum, far too little to pay for the needed work. Greatly discouraged, Father Cyril once again poured out his heart in long, earnest prayer to the divine infant. He had barely risen from his knees when a summons came, calling him to the church. Standing on the steps before the shrine of Our Lady of Mount Carmel was a beautiful woman he had never seen before, radiant, noble, and serene. Placing a generous sum of money into his hands, she said, "The goodness of God sends you these alms to aid you in your well-known poverty." Before the stunned priest could even thank her, she was gone. Father Cyril remained convinced for the rest of his life that it had been the Virgin Mother herself who had answered his plea. But, as before, the priest's renewed hope did not last. Though the prior agreed to have the damaged statue repaired, he insisted it could be done only within a strict budget, which turned out to be merely half of what the craftsman demanded for the work. With no way to meet the price, the statue remained unchanged, still worn, still broken, still without its hands. Soon, hardship once again descended upon the monastery. The dreaded Black Plague swept across the region. Several friars fell ill, and others were sent away for their own protection. Soldiers roaming the countryside stole the community's cows and horses. In the midst of this turmoil, the prior himself was struck by the plague and soon hovered near death. Father Cyril urged him to call upon the divine child for help. Right then and there, the prior vowed that if he survived, he would offer a novena of masses to be prayed before the statue of the infant Jesus. Within a few days, he was healed of the illness. True to his promise, he became a devoted champion of the divine child and set aside a special chapel where the faithful could venerate the statue. The statue's hands were still missing, however, and the sight of the little king in such a state weighed heavily on Father Cyril. One day, as he prayed alone before the image, he again heard a quiet voice. "Place me near the entrance to the sacristy," the voice said, "and you will find someone who will have pity on me." Trusting completely, the priest obeyed at once. Soon, a man unknown to him approached and paused before the damaged statue. Without any introduction, the man offered to have the statue restored at his own expense. Father Cyril accepted with gratitude, and before long, the repaired image was returned to the church, ready once more for the devotion of the faithful. The benefactor's name was Daniel Wolf. At the very moment he made his offer, Wolf himself was suffering deeply. Accused of failing in his duties as Chief Commissioner of War, he had been stripped of his reputation, his office, and his possessions. His life had fallen into ruin. Yet, only a few days after he offered to repair the statue, an imperial decree arrived, clearing him completely and restoring everything he had lost. In gratitude, Daniel Wolf later commissioned a splendid shrine in the public church, where the Holy Infant could be appropriately honored. In the years that followed, Prague endured new waves of war and turmoil. Yet, through it all, the church and the chapel of the Infant Jesus stood untouched, preserved under heaven's own protection. Then, in 1776, a renewal took place. The altar was rebuilt in gleaming marble, and on each side stood towering statues, Our Lady on the left, serene and maternal, and Saint Joseph on the right, steadfast and watchful. At the center, the Holy Infant was enshrined within a delicate glass case, raised upon a pedestal that sparkled with crystal engravings. All around him, 20 golden angels seemed to hover in praise. The scene was a triumph, not only of craftsmanship, but of faith that had endured every trial. One of the earliest miracles of the Infant Jesus of Prague occurred when a count came in desperate haste to Father Cyril, his voice trembling as he pleaded for help. His wife lay dying, he said, and though every remedy known to medicine had been tried, all had failed. He confided that his wife was a cousin of Princess Polyxena, the same noblewoman who had first gifted the friars with the statue of the Christ child. "Only his intercession can save her now," the count implored. "Father, I beg you, bring the statue to her bedside." Moved by compassion, Father Cyril carried the statue to the count's home. There, the anxious husband led him to the room where his wife lay pale and still, unresponsive to all the physician's treatments. The count leaned close to her and said softly, "Open your eyes, my beloved. The statue of the child Jesus is here. He will heal you." At the sound of those words, the countess stirred. When her gaze fell upon the figure of the infant Jesus set before her, her face lit up with wonder. She cried out, stretching out her hands toward him. Weeping with joy, she held the little statue close and kissed it tenderly. At that moment, to the astonishment of all, the color returned to her cheeks, and she began to regain her strength. Her husband, overcome, declared that a miracle had taken place. His wife was healed. As soon as she was totally recovered, the Countess came in person to the Carmelite friary. In gratitude for the gift of her life restored, she placed a gleaming crown of gold upon the infant's head and adorned him with precious diamonds and jewels. Word of the miracle spread quickly throughout Prague, then across all of Bohemia, bringing crowds flocking to the shrine of the divine infant, seeking comfort, healing, and hope. Countless prayers were answered, and the devotion surrounding the statue grew ever stronger. Miracles and cures multiplied. Copies of the image began to appear far beyond the city, and the love for the Infant of Prague spread across the world. Pilgrims began arriving from every walk of life. The friary became a place of grace and pilgrimage, its humble chapel echoing with prayers, faith, and awe at the power of the Holy Infant's love. Father Cyril spent the remainder of his life promoting this devotion. He died on February 4th, 1675, at the age of 85, having lived to see the devotion spread throughout Europe. He is officially titled by the Church Venerable Father Cyril of the Mother of God, and is on the road to sainthood. As the years passed, devotion to the Holy Infant continued to spread far and wide. The Holy See recognized its spiritual fruitfulness, approving many prayers and granting indulgences to those who sought the infant's intercession. Centuries later, in 1913, Pope St. Pius X established the Confraternity of the Infant Jesus of Prague, a spiritual family uniting all who cherished and venerated the Holy Child. Numerous spiritual graces were granted to its members. Many countries developed their own particular devotions and customs in connection with the Miraculous Infant. In Ireland, a charming tradition developed that was shared by generations. On the eve of a wedding, the statue of the Infant Jesus of Prague was placed outside beneath a bush and left there through the night to secure fine weather for the day ahead. Couples and families, trusting in the child's gentle favor, carried out the little ritual with quiet hope. Though many old Irish wedding customs have faded, this simple act has endured. Even today, in Irish towns and country villages, the tiny statue continues to appear outdoors before a wedding, a humble reminder of Ireland's faith, tradition, and love for the miraculous child. In 1900, the Carmelites placed a small picture of the infant Jesus in their little church in the coastal town of Arenzano, Italy. This led to a phenomenal outpouring of devotion from the townspeople, who received great graces and miracles as a result. The Infant of Prague never ceased to watch over the people of Arenzano, his presence a quiet shield in times of fear and unrest. The depth of that protection became unmistakable during the dark days of World War II. In October of 1943, the skies above the town suddenly filled with bombers that seemed to appear from nowhere. Their deadly load fell without warning, one bomb flying wildly off course and crashing into a home where a tiny baby, only 33 days old, slept on the third floor. The bomb tore through the roof and ripped through 3 full stories before coming to a rest in the nursery. No one who saw the wreck believed there could be any survivors. But the infant's mother, though shaken and wounded, was a woman of immense faith. As soon as she could stand, she lifted her eyes and pleaded for the help of the divine Infant of Prague. "Save my child," she prayed. With desperate hope, she ran to the smoking ruins of her home and began clawing through the rubble with her bare hands. Splintered beams and shattered stones surrounded her, yet she lifted them away with a strength she didn't know she had. Again and again she called her baby's name into the silence, and at last a faint little cry answered from beneath the debris. Frantic now, she tore away layer after layer of wreckage until, buried beneath nearly 6 feet of rubble, she found her daughter alive. With tears streaming down her face, the mother gathered her unharmed child in her arms and gave thanks aloud, proclaiming that it was only through the intercession of the Holy Infant of Prague that such a miracle had come to pass. Less than a year later, on August 14, 1944, the people of Arenzano witnessed another sign of divine protection. Once again, bombers flew overhead, fully capable of erasing the village from the map. Explosions rocked the hillsides, but when the smoke cleared, there was scarcely any damage. The townspeople, deeply moved and filled with gratitude, came together as one voice, declaring what their hearts already knew, that the Infant of Prague had shielded them once again. Countless reported miracles are linked to the blessed oil taken from the lamps that burned before the statue of the Infant of Prague, oil that is solemnly blessed during the holy sacrifice of the Mass on the 25th of each month. In 1941, one such miracle was granted to a man named Vincenzo da Monte. After a serious leg injury, he developed tetanus, a diagnosis that at the time was considered hopeless once it had advanced. When he was finally brought to the hospital, doctors told his wife there was nothing more to be done. Aware that death was near, Vincenzo asked for a priest and received the last rites while his wife and children wept at his bedside. But a fellow parishioner, greatly devoted to the Infant of Prague, urged the family to anoint Vincenzo's stricken leg with blessed oil from the shrine and to entrust his healing entirely to the merciful child Jesus. Clinging to that hope, they obeyed, praying fervently as they applied the oil repeatedly over the infected limb. Then the extraordinary occurred. Within a few days, the man who had been given no earthly hope stood up, embraced his wife and children, and was declared completely cured, his life and his leg both restored in a way that no doctor could explain. Among the faithful, it was clear that the Holy Infant of Prague had answered their plea with a miraculous healing. The first book of miracle testimonies and answered prayers was published in 1749, but to this day, the Miraculous Infant Jesus of Prague has continued to work countless miracles for the faithful who honor him, as he had promised to Father Cyril so long ago. Every day throughout the world, numerous people turn to the Miraculous Infant Jesus of Prague in times of material or financial distress. He is a special patron of children, vocations, education, foreign missions, safe travel, the terminally ill and paralyzed. He is also invoked for healing of mind, body, and soul, restoration of hearing and sight, financial concerns, an end to hostilities, and the safeguarding of freedom. Today you can visit the shrine of the Infant Jesus of Prague at the Church of Our Lady Victorious in the Mala Strana district of Prague. Devotion to the Infant Jesus of Prague emphasizes the importance of humility and a childlike trust in God's providence and care, reminding the faithful that no need is too small for Jesus' attention. Many statues of the Infant Jesus bear a small inscription at their base, recalling the words Father Cyril once heard as he prayed before the miraculous image. "The more you honor me, the more I will bless you." Wherever the child king is welcomed and reverently enthroned, peace and harmony are sure to follow. Prayer to the Miraculous Infant Jesus of Prague. O Miraculous Infant Jesus of Prague, I come before you with a humble heart, full of love and trust. You who said, "The more you honor me, the more I will bless you," look kindly upon my needs today. Divine Child, King of heaven and earth, stretch out your little hands to protect, heal, and guide me. In your innocence lies divine power. In your smallness dwells infinite majesty. I place before you all my worries and hopes. Please watch over all my loved ones. Bless my home with peace, my heart with faith, and my days with joy. Teach me to rely on you completely, to accept your will with serenity, and to love you with a pure and faithful heart. O Holy Infant Jesus, I trust in your mercy and rest in your love. May your miraculous grace fill my life and the lives of all who call upon you. Amen.